welcome to the Total Soccer Show. I am Taylor Rockwell, and I am all by my lonesome today. Daryl Grove has returned to his native England, but that doesn't mean you'll just have to listen to me ramble for about 30 minutes. No, instead, we've got Alexi Lalas joining us here shortly to talk Decision Day and MLS playoffs, and also twerking, somehow. But first, I wanted to note that today's MLS coverage is brought to you by roughneckscarves.com. That's RUFFNECK scarves.com. Roughneck is the official scarf provider for U.S. Soccer, MLS, NCAA, and USL, and they are committed to providing passionate soccer fans with outstanding customer service, professional design, and the highest quality soccer scarves in the world. They're also committed to keeping TSS listeners from having to break the bank just to get some lovely merchandise. Our listeners can use the promo code TOTALSoccerShow, that's all one word, all uppercase, to get 20% off any scarf in the shop. Many thanks to Roughneck Scarves for sponsoring today's show, and with that in mind, here's today's guest. On the line with me now, I've got Alexi Lalas. Alexi, you've got your headset in. I appreciate you taking the time to be on the show.
Always a pleasure. Absolute. I love it. I love talking to you. I love what you guys are doing, and now you're doing it on a more continual basis. I know that's a bigger workload for you, but it keeps me happy as a listener, especially when I'm running around and actually literally running, and you make the runs that much more enjoyable.
Well, that's good. We appreciate that. And we appreciated your bringing up the show with Siggy Schmidt, bringing up the rhythm question, although it seems like no one still has an answer for what your conclusion means.
Yeah. I mean, you gave me the thought of doing it, and so I wanted to give you credit, but we got no closer to any type of definition as to what rhythm is. And look, I've said this before. In the soccer world, whether it's players or coaches or people in the media, oftentimes we throw out this jargon. It's done in all walks of life. You do that to make yourself look better, and a lot of times it's complete BS. And a lot of the stuff that we talk about is just this nebulous type of subjective terminology that doesn't really mean anything, or it means completely different things to people, and we don't really have a definitive definition of a lot of these things, and we still don't after talking to Zig.
Yeah, it feels a little bit, Daryl actually instituted a rule on the show that you can't just speak in generalities, you have to be able to back it up. So if I say the U.S. just looked really consistent out there, he would be like, well, what does that mean? What do you mean by consistency? And I have to back it up. I'm not sure Jurgen would be able to do that, but I could be wrong. Maybe it's just his secret word that no one quite knows.
There is a lot, it's a lot, the Supreme Court definition of obscenity. It's kind of like that. It's I can't explain it to you and I can't define it, but I sure as hell know when I see it. That's a team that lacks rhythm.
There we go. Okay, we'll stick with the Supreme Court definition then. That works.
Perfect.
Well, I think it's a recurring theme on this show, so I'm going to stick with it. Is the feature of the Alexi Sleep Watch. So you're always pretty busy, but I'm guessing with the start of the playoffs, with Decision Day, with everything else going on, you're busier than ever. So what's your schedule like now? What's your schedule like for the next month and a half or so?
So, yesterday we had this wonderful Decision Day with both us and ESPN, for that matter, doing a lot because all these simultaneous games were going on, and we know the parity in MLS. You don't know who's actually making it or not making it. You don't know who's playing who. We find at the end of the day, finally the matchups are there. That red line that, for better or worse, delineates good from bad, success from failure, had established who made it, who didn't, and I find myself booking flights late last night to Seattle. So Seattle, for all of your efforts, you get me as a reward. And I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but we're going to head up to Seattle for the FS1 midweek game on Thursday. And, look, we're excited to see what this Seattle team can do. We know that they just were incredible in terms of turning it around. They fired Siggy Schmidt. On the same day that they brought in Lodero, and he has been, Nicolas Lodero, the Uruguayan attacking midfielder, has been everything to that team. He completely changed the the complexion of that team. And in the year where it wasn't going well for Seattle, the loss of Clint Dempsey with his health issues, the loss of Obafemi Martins at the beginning of the year, and they went on an epic run. Although it's MLS, so I'm not sure if it is that epic because anything really happens in MLS. So but it was fun to watch, and now we'll see if they can parlay all of that success momentum into the playoffs, which we know is not always easy in MLS, where there's almost two different seasons, the regular season and then what have you done for me lately? And oftentimes we see teams that maybe struggled or weren't at the top in regular season coming through and finding a way to MLS Cup.
Yeah. Well, one of those teams that you mentioned, or one of those teams that I guess did that last season would be Portland. Portland obviously knocked out on decision day. Columbus already out of playoff contention, which means you don't have either championship final team in the playoffs. Do you see that as a positive thing in that it's like kind of promoting parity and change, or is it a negative thing in that there's not much consistency there? Fans maybe who are just tuning in for the playoffs might not know some of the names that they knew from last season.
Well, it's not a positive thing if you're from Portland, but I could care less because for me, I want more fodder. I want more stuff to talk about, and this is something to talk about. And I would submit this to you. In a league where we know that 12 out of the 18 out of the 20 teams at this point right now make the playoffs, it is a line that separates success from failure. And I do give added value to a team that has success in the regular season and is able to parlay it. I'm proud of some different things that I did in my past, but one of the things I'm proud of is in 2002, I was part of a Los Angeles Galaxy team that not only won the Supporters Shield, but also went on to win MLS Cup, which we know is very difficult. It's only happened 6 times in MLS history. And so I would say, and I would submit to you, that Portland last year, their accomplishments last year are somewhat tainted. And I devalue them because of the fact that they couldn't maintain a consistency, albeit in a league that is very, very difficult and the margins of error are very, very small. And they're not going to care what I say. I mean, they can go on and celebrate. Nobody's going to care many years from now. They will have won the 2015 MLS Cup. But the way in which they did it, and then to follow it up the next year with not even making the playoffs, that to me, it taints it a little bit. And so I'm interested how they go about in the offseason. If they just say, look, this is just one of those crazy MLS seasons where things didn't happen, although their record on the road was abysmal, and ultimately it did them in, ironically, on the last day of the season too. And so I'll be interested to see how much pressure Caleb Porter is. I don't think his job's in jeopardy right now because of what happened last year. But look, this is a Portland team, and Merritt Polson, the owner, that expects some sort of consistency, and this is just a complete high to a complete low.
Well, yeah, I want to. That's really interesting. So, in your mind, is it kind of linked? So you say it's been tainted a little bit. If they come back next season, if they make some smart moves, if they get some new DPs or whatever it takes, and all of a sudden they're back in the playoffs, they're back contending for MLS Cup, then does it like untaint it because it is kind of this line of like correcting and fixing and dealing with problems and getting back to the top?
Well, but I mean, it was just this anomaly and this aberration, if you will, because look, MLS teams cannot make the playoffs, but there are good teams that are consistent for a period of years, even though they might not even win MLS Cup, but they're consistently in the mix. They're making the playoffs consistently. They are vying for championships consistently when you have teams. And they can have off years, but if you're just Portland and you just stick your head above everything and say, hey, look at us for 1 year, okay, you can celebrate that, and they will. And like I said, they could care less about anything that I have to say about their team, at least publicly. For me, I value a team like, for example, Dallas right now. Dallas is consistently not only being successful, but they get the added praise that they are doing it in a completely different way in terms of their philosophy. Now, it doesn't work for all different teams, and you wouldn't be able to do it in other places, but I have a respect for Oscar Pereira and that organization because consistently through the year, they are not only being successful, but they are also giving their fan base, the people that buy tickets, a consistent, good quality product. And that's important to me. And I don't think we, in this league, you can say, oh, it's all willy-nilly and everything kind of happens and it's 2 different seasons, you can squeak in. But when you have the opportunity to praise and to extol the virtues of a team that is consistent year after year after year, putting a quality and successful product on the field, then you should take that opportunity to praise them.
All right. Well, I want to get to Dallas in just a sec, but first I want to get to the knockout round, which is now set.
Yep.
We've got Toronto, Philly, DC, Montreal, Galaxy, RSL, and then Seattle, Sporting, KC. I know you've got some vested interest in the Seattle game, obviously. Who do you think is most likely to go on a run out of those teams I just listed?
Seattle, and only because of what their second half of the season became, considering what their first half of this season was.
Yeah.
And they're still a quality team. Lodero has completely changed the way that they play. I was talking with someone earlier in terms of who do you feel has the best chance of beating the home team? Because history tells us that the home teams have an advantage. It doesn't always work out that way, but I was hard-pressed to find an away team that I could say I could see something happening there. Now, Toronto has kind of tailed off, and and Philly is, I don't know if it's playing with house money, but they're just, I don't feel that Philly has that much pressure. So maybe they go into that situation and find a way out, which would be devastating for Toronto, because this has been billed as a very, very successful year. And if it's a successful year and then you bomb out of the playoffs in that first round after failing to even challenge for the conference final or conference championships, I think that's a problem. The other thing is Montreal, with all of the craziness with Drogba and stuff like that, could they come into DC and find a way on grass to upset a DC? I could possibly see that happening. You can convince me that something right there could happen, but I don't see Sporting KC, which is just a head scratcher of a team right now, coming into Seattle. And I don't see RSL coming into Los Angeles and finding a way out, which means that all the away teams will win because this is MLS, and that's kind of what happens.
So I'm curious, and I'm going to put you on the spot here because I'm guessing you've been checking the news today. But if not, I want to ask, which is more likely: Didier Drogba plays against DC United for Montreal in this playoff, or Michael Bradley plays for AC Milan in January?
I think it's more likely that Didier Drogba plays.
Interesting.
Doesn't start, and not because it's. I don't see the AC Milan thing. Look, Michael Bradley left a very good impression in Italy, and the people that are in Italy, whether it's at AC Milan or just in general, they're not watching him play every single day. Not that they would see anything that would be problematic. So all of us that are knee deep in it, and we're saying, oh, Michael is better or worse, or he suffered from coming over here, or he's actually improved, or he's just trying to change his game, or he's slowed down, all that kind of stuff. They don't see any of that. They just look at Michael Bradley, who continues to represent and captain the national team, and does it fine. I mean, we within the weeds, we say, this is good, this is bad, and all that kind of stuff. So it's not a surprise to me that they would look at a guy who has already had success, that is a international, that can come back in, understands the culture, speaks the language, and can help a team. And AC Milan is not the AC Milan that sometimes we think about. So that's not as far-fetched as I think people sometimes view it when those types of rumors come out. But as far as if I had to put money on which of the two happens, I think Didier Drogba has to play in these playoffs. Now, after that, once they're out, then I think that this could be the end of Didier Drogba.
That's interesting. So you think he will play? Because I know he wasn't in Montreal's matchday squad yesterday.
Right.
So So you think they'll recall him just because it's playoff time and it's such a big event?
Yeah, it's playoffs. It's on grass, and we know that he doesn't like to and just doesn't at times play on turf. I do think that he's still pissed. I think that he will, maybe more so than others, kind of use that and a chip on Didier Drogba's shoulder, whether he's starting, which I doubt, but even if he's coming off the bench, I think that's a good thing for Montreal and maybe a dangerous thing for someone like DC. But you understand this. They're just better without him starting. And this is the problem sometimes that you get into when you sign a big money player, a big name player in a league that we know is built on manufactured parity, where you're not going in. Didier Drogba has played for some big clubs where he knew when he stepped on the field, look, we're gonna win because we have more talent. That doesn't exist in MLS. Right. And so sometimes it's very, very difficult at times to make that decision. And hats off to Yellow and that organization there for recognizing, winning is more important than satisfying the public perception of having that high-profile and high-priced player play right now. And we're going to do what we need to do to win the game.
So we've talked a little bit about DC Montreal, the potential fireworks there. Do you think that is one of the more dramatic fixtures in this knockout round, or do you think it's Seattle Sporting KC, or maybe a different one?
Well, I think because Seattle's such a big organization, because there's so much attention, not just from the Seattle folks, and we'll give them credit where credit is due. They are a massive team in this league in terms of attention, and there's as many people that hate Seattle as love Seattle, and that's for me the sign of a good super club out there. So, and what has happened over the year, I think it's going to be interesting to see if they continue it. The DC United thing, and this is this situation in MLS where we were talking to Ziggy Schmidt actually on my podcast, and he was discussing how he was lamenting the fact that there are different standards for different teams and how they view what is success and ambition. And I didn't understand what he was trying to say there, because of course there's different standards. And the fact is that a Ben Olsen or a Pablo Mastroianni, for that matter, they're in a wonderful moment right now. But if they are coaches at different teams other than DC United and Colorado Rapids, they're not the coach anymore. They would have been fired a long time ago.
Yep.
But they're not in a place where there is the press banging away and the supporters banging away that, hey, we need change, and there's that type of pressure. And so they were afforded the opportunity to kind of just continue on. And so I'll be interested to see how this DC United, and it's inspired in the way that they have gone about playing and bringing in different parts. And Ben Olsen is very, very good, and the hierarchy up there is very good at bringing in MLS people that just understand MLS. And not the greatest players, but you're going to get a consistent performance. And that's really what's happened right now. But does that in a one-game type of situation where anything can happen, is it there when you need it most?
That makes sense. So you mentioned Colorado. They are one of the top 4 seeds, Dallas, Colorado, New York Red Bulls, NYCFC. In your opinion, who do you think is most likely to make a deep run out of that 4 or, to win the final? And who do you think could be upset in the earlier rounds? I feel like there's always one of the bigger seeds that goes out, at least one. I'm curious if you think there will be any this time around.
So I would say the most likely to get upset would be NYCFC, and the most likely to make a deep run would be Colorado, and for 2 reasons. One for each. So Colorado is based on defense, and while I was talking about Pablo Mastroianni, I think one of the good things that he has done, especially this year, is focused on defense. And Pablo was a great defender. Yes, he played defensive midfield, but he understood how to defend individually and how to defend as a team. And I think he has used that to great advantage, and that old adage of defense wins championships and all that. They will grind it down. Aesthetically, they don't have to go out there and entertain anybody. That's not what they are about. They are about results. They have Howard. And defensively, they have been very solid. And that will take you far in any type of sport, and certainly in soccer in a playoff type of situation. So you can see them making a run, which wouldn't be a surprise because of how well they've done this year. But on the other side of it, NYCFC, the way that they play, while I love it because I'm a romantic and I will vote, if I could vote twice, I would vote for Patrick Vieira twice for Coach of the Year because of what he has done and the way that he has adhered to a system, and a very risky and difficult system at times. He has made his players better at playing and his team better at playing for it, and it has translated into a very, very good season in terms of wins and losses. And to come in your first season, we talk all about how foreign managers can't understand the league and blah, 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 blah. Well, Patrick Vieira had no problem understanding the league. And not only did he understand the league, but he played in a way that is completely unique. And this goes back to what we talked about at the beginning, where there's so much BS about aesthetics and this is our philosophy and our style of play. Well, you can actually see it, you can articulate it, you can point it out to someone who doesn't understand anything about the game, that this is how NYCFC is going to play. Now, having said that, there are risks, and it would not surprise me in the least if NYCFC did not make a deep run and were kicked out early on.
Well, NYCFC have already made us look foolish, us being the Total Soccer Show, because I think between them and Colorado, we did not predict good seasons for either club, and they seem to have done pretty well in the end. So, it just proves that maybe Total Soccer Show has some stuff to learn about Major League Soccer.
No, it just proves that history oftentimes has little bearing on how MLS teams function and from year to year. And we're talking about Ben Olsen. I mean, look, there's a perfect example of going worst to first. And this league is very forgiving. And for all the talk about promotion relegation and lack of consequence and all that kind of stuff, the reality is that if your team is bad one year, you should expect that team can find a way, because it's been proven that, and this is where history does prove out in MLS, that you can go from a very bad team to a very good team within the span of a year and right back. So, but it also shows, and this has been proven, that trying to predict MLS, I would love to meet the man or woman that is able to successfully and consistently pick MLS, because I have yet to meet that person. It is such a difficult league to predict.
Yeah, we need a Nate Silver for MLS, I think.
Oh
that would help out.
I don't even think the crunching the numbers even works anymore. He would pair out and say, this is the one anomaly where it doesn't work, and analytics, be damned. Speaking of some things that can be determined, we know who the Golden Boot winner is. It's Bradley Wright Phillips. Mm-hmm. But we did have a Twitter question from Jermaine of Tarth, which is an excellent Twitter handle. He or she asked, can you explain how MLS MVP voting works? I keep hearing BWP and Kleshton are considered out because they will split the vote. How does that work, or what does that mean? So there is a vote of the media. I have ceased to vote, although I am eligible to vote. Over the last couple of years, I just have not voted. I tell you who I feel my MVP is, but I don't actually vote for that. Then there is as far as if I'm not mistaken, there's a player vote and then a coach's GM's type of vote, and it's all tabulated together. Where I come, look, MLS doesn't give us criteria for a Major League Soccer MVP, and so I have, for a number of years, made up my own criteria, and it's been consistent throughout. I only vote for, if I'm voting, like I said, I'm not voting, but the only one that I pick for my Major League Soccer most valuable player are goal scorers. There's nothing more valuable in soccer than scoring a goal. So while I love goalkeepers and while I love assists and all that, they are not more valuable than scoring goals. And so it's only goal scorers. It's not the number of goals that you score, but it's the amount of games that you score a goal in, because it does me no good to be playing with a guy who scores 5 goals one game and then goes 5 games without scoring. Right. I want to know consistently. One of the great things about playing with a guy like Carlos Ruiz back in the day was that I knew when I stepped on the field as a center back that we were already winning 1-0 for all intents and purposes, because he consistently scored game after game. And that is incredibly valuable to a coach and incredibly valuable to teammates. So it's not how many goals you score, it's how many different games you score. Thirdly, I don't count penalties. I think they should be a separate statistic and column. And while I recognize there's value to them, I don't count them within this calculation that I'm making. And then 4, in a league where there are 20 teams and 12 teams make the playoffs, if you're the most valuable player, then you should have at the very least been able to have your team make the playoffs. And so those are my criteria when it comes to Major League Soccer MVP. When I put it all into that calculator and it spits out a name, right now it's Bradley Wright Phillips, because of the amount of games that he has scored in, his team's in the playoffs. He doesn't take penalties and doesn't score penalties. And so he is leading the pack right now. And so he will be my MVP if anybody asks.
That makes sense. But do you get the idea of it being split because of question? Is it like people will only vote for one player from a club?
Yeah, I completely understand that. And Sasha's, I guess his, what hurts him is that he has Bradley Wright Phillips, and maybe I guess what hurts Bradley Wright Phillips is he has Sasha question. My point is, you can score a goal without an assist. You can't have an assist without a goal, and that gets back to why goals are more important. Look, I love Sasha Question. I love what is happening to him now, both from a club and country perspective. I think he's actually, when we talk, and this is a bigger conversation, when we talk about what MLS does to players, I could make an argument, and I do make an argument, that Sasha Question's time with the Red Bulls in MLS has actually made him a better player. And we can argue about that going forward, and I'm sure people will. But it's wonderful to see, and I'm real happy that he's gotten called in. I would question the hierarchy, whether it's Jurgen Klinsmann or the technical director of the U.S. men's national team or any of the staff out there. Did they mess up when it comes to Sasha Question? Because did Sasha Question just suddenly become a great player? Because keep in mind, he wasn't even going to be called in except there was an injury to a center back.
That's right.
And so if that injury doesn't happen, the Sasha Question isn't in, and he's not on the verge of starting in the biggest game since the World Cup in 2014 with this game against Mexico coming up. It boggles my mind. But this is kind of par for the course when you're talking about the national team. I know I've veered into the national team. I tend to do that sometimes.
That makes sense. And it's fair to do. Now, with your MVP criteria, I think you talked about this last year at halftime of Decision Day, and I think that was why. Did you give it to Kai Kamara according to your criteria?
Yeah, it's according to my calculations. Yes, Kai Kamara came out as my MVP given my criteria.
That makes sense. But my question is, given that Portland didn't make the playoffs, so that championship is tainted, does the fact that Kai Kamara got a yellow card yesterday for twerking, does that taint your MVP selection for him last season?
No, it actually validates it because my fifth and oftentimes unknown criteria is personality and character.
That works.
So if it ends up being a tie, and I have to kind of have some sort of tiebreaker, oftentimes I'll say, well, who would I pay money to watch? And I will pay money to watch Kai Kamara. Card or not, which I think is ridiculous. I love the fact that he is he has such a personality. You got to back it up, and I think that this transition to New England Revolution, it didn't go great, but I'm willing to just hold judgment until he gets a full year with the New England Revolution. If he gets a full year with the New England Revolution, who knows what happens in the off season right now. So he's got to back it up, continue to score goals. But I love his personality. I love his character. I think I want to do everything I possibly can to encourage that. And I don't think we do enough actually to encourage our players to express themselves. It doesn't mean you have to be a jerk. It doesn't mean you have to be completely crazy and out of your mind. But encouraging people to express themselves on and off the field and have opinions and have personalities and characters, I think, is actually something that can be done internally from coaches, from organizations, and externally from guys like myself. So I love Kai Kamara, whether he's twerking or not.
Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate that you brought up personality and character, because my final question for you, obviously there were great goals and compelling moments yesterday on Decision Day, but was the best thing on screen that Rob Stone blazer? And I'm also curious how anyone on the Fox panel can ever manage to beat that.
You can't beat it. And, I grew up a hockey fan and still a huge hockey fan. And so the whole Don Cherry association and what Don Cherry has represented and has become when it comes to attire. And I was there when Rob showed me this jacket for the first time. And I immediately, my jaw dropped and I said, I want that. I want that. And I was so jealous that he was able to not only wear it, but also take it into our wonderful wardrobe folks over at Fox and have it tailored.
Oh, that's even better.
I mean, yeah, it's a whole nother level with Rob Stone. When he does something, he does it 100%. And for those that didn't see it, you can check it out online and on Twitter and out there. But he had this incredible jacket that had all of the different brands, logos, whatever you want to call them, of all the different teams. And it was, for an MLS person, it was something that you said, I want that. Please find a way to give me that jacket. So it was glorious on Rob Stone. It was fun to be standing next to it throughout the day at the StubHub Center.
Well, Alexi Lalas, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me today. I know you've got a hectic month and a half coming with MLS playoffs and an international break in there as well. So thank you again for being on the line.
It's always a pleasure to talk to you. I hope that you get reinforcements going forward. I know you guys got a lot of work to do, but I love listening to you, like I said, and it's always fun talking.
We'll right back at you with the Mutant Gene podcast and with your work with Fox. So well done to you, and thanks again.
Thanks.
Well, thank you again to Alexi Lalas for being on the show today. We always love having our ginger friend on the air. Daryl, as I said, will be out of town this week, so we will have Matt Doyle with us tomorrow afternoon, evening-ish is when the show should be out, to preview the MLS playoffs, to discuss the MLS regular season and the close thereof. Until then, this is Taylor saying we'll talk to you soon.